Righto. Gearbox removal time. Woo. I put a longer false gear on it a year or so ago, and it makes the most horrendous bloody noise. It's awful. So I was going to take the gearbox out and swap the false gear. But on emptying, I went out for a ride yesterday just to warm everything up, dumped the oil out, and on the end of the drain bolt I've glued a magnet, and the end of the magnet looked like a hedgehog. It was just iron filings galore, which bodes ill. Somebody in there is not very happy, so we shall see. I shall make the video in two. The first part will be taking the gearbox out, and the second will be stripping the gearbox, getting the fourth gear out. There's a few differences between this and a standard Dnepr, the main one being that. There's other little differences, things like I've got Allen bolts holding the final drive on. I did that purely because when it's made, it's got studs sticking out, and when you take the nuts off, the studs stick out 20mm or so. But to push the diff sideways, I don't know if I can get this on camera, you have to push the diff sideways to obviously clear it from the swing arm. But in doing that, there's not a lot of room for the prop shaft to go. There's only a little bit of gap between the prop shaft and the mudguard. So to make it easier, I just fitted metric Allen bolts. The downside to that is that the threaded holes in this case go straight into the final drive, so I have to seal these with PTFE, the plumber's tape. So I mean, it's no biggie. Just every time I take them out, I have to clean them up and put fresh PTFE on. I'd rather that than I think the first time I did it, I used Loctite, but Loctite, when it goes off, goes quite hard and sort of crystally, and I didn't want that dropping in and getting graunched around the bearings. It's just something I didn't want, so I used white PTFE tape. So that's one difference. The other difference is obviously the oil cooler, oil filter. The oil filter, excuse, when it goes back into the engine, I'm looking through the camera, I can't bloody see what I'm doing here. Where's my finger? There it is. I drilled and tapped in the gearbox case and put an AN fitting in there, and I specifically aimed it to hit the kickstart gear, because the back half is in two parts. Again, I'll show you when I strip it all down. The back half spins, so the cooler oil, rather than just going blip straight to the bottom of the gearbox and then coming straight out again, is actually flung around the gearbox and mixed up, so that the hotter the oil, hopefully, is the oil coming out, and it comes out and goes through the oil cooler, the pump, the cooler, and then the filter. I left the filter, when I drain the oil, you can see that one's sort of empty, that pipe. This one is empty-ish, and it's sitting down the bottom. It obviously won't push air, the pump won't pump air, so it won't. That's no big. I can empty that out and clean it before I put the fresh oil in. But I've got the oil in the get your fingers off the lens. Well, you can't tell on camera, and I can't tell just while looking at it. I mean, it's not bad. I need to look when I drain it out. You can't even, no. I'm going to have to drain it slowly into a jug and see what's left in the bottom of that. But like I said earlier, I've got a magnet on the dips on the drain bolt, and I've got the oil filter. So, and I've got, this is a standard shaft. I was going to get the 4th gear off of that. This collar is unbelievably tight. Unbelievably tight. I have to use gas and this pretty heavy duty puller to get it off. But I found, not that I've lost, but I found this is the original 4th gear from the gearbox that's in the bike now. This shaft is from the spare gearbox, which hasn't been modified to fit a BMW engine. So I'm going to put the gear back on that came off and not another one. I've obviously destroyed this bearing, heating it up with a blowtorch, but that little collar is just incredibly tight. So I shall get started. I'm going to have to pause this, otherwise you'll just be watching me farting around getting wheels off. And I'm going to try something. I was hoping, I've not looked into it, in fact looking now, I don't think, under there, this prop shaft is splined where it goes into I think it goes into the UJs. It's got like a snap ring in there, and there's a snap ring behind this fork that goes into this rubber donut, and there's a fork into the gearbox. Bloody things in the way. In there, on the, so you can see the splines on the shaft. There is a snap ring down there, and I was going to try and get that snap ring off, the other snap ring, and then move that prop shaft backwards and leave everything in place to try and get this out, which I don't think I'm going to be able to do. So I'll do what I normally do: take the wheel off, final drive off, prop shaft out. I used to get this off in situ with the gearbox in place and then take the gearbox, but because of this big opening here, there was a friend of mine, Greg, Mr. Deathwish, he said, well, just leave it on, because getting it off isn't too bad. It's a real faff trying to get it out of there and trying to put the thing on. If you put this on this fork and then put the gearbox in and then try and get this in, oh, nightmare, especially if the rubber's cold, absolute nightmare. So Greg just said, well, leave it on. So I did, and you can wiggle it into there and wiggle stuff about. But unlike a standard Dnepr engine, I've got to take the left-hand carb off. The gearbox comes out the left-hand side of the engine, but not with that carb there. So I'll get what I can, and then I'll pause this first, get what I can, and then I'll come back. Right, back wheel out. That was an effort, proper effort. That's what I said earlier about the these go straight down onto the bearing. I'll get a light in a minute, but this alley had corroded, the bare alley had corroded onto the steel swinging arm. Something just fell off. Oh, the trunnion. So I had to get WD in there and wiggle it, and with blow lamp. These are the bolts with the PTFE on them. I took some of the PTFE off, put the bolts back in till about, they were sticking out sort of a couple of mil, and then tapped them, and it was only a tap, because I didn't want the threads ripping straight out. Another long job is this brake rod goes to the brake pedal, that goes you can't see it, goes inside, and there's a little 10mm nut there. So let's get a lamp. No, it just fell off. It was a little trunniony bit. There, like you can see, that's the top of the bearing. And you can see the, if I can hold this in my knees, I don't know if you can actually see anything turning. If I turn the prop shaft, yeah, you can. Right. No, because that's not on it. Right. Yeah, you can see the crown wheel as I'm turning the prop through that hole. That's what I was talking about, taking that split ring off there. You can see how far it would have had to come out through the fork, and there's another one under there, so there's no way I could have moved it that way or that way and left it in place and taken this off. It just wouldn't happen. But you can see why I put the PTFE on it, just to seal the diff from all the goo. There is a bit of PTFE in there, but that's not a problem. And I think that clonk was, there you go, that's the little trunnion that's what that 10mm nut screws up against. I'll show you very quickly. Where is it? I don't want the oil to come piddling out. There it is. That's the brake rod. The trunnion goes through that hole there in the middle. That's what expands the brakes. Right, that's that job. Next job is airbox. I'm going to take off this arm, the clutch actuating arm, down there. I think you can see it. There's a little R-clip, see it? That R-clip will come off, that pivot bolt will come out, and this arm will come off, so I don't have to disturb this screw-on nipple on the clutch cable. Take that off, take the airbox off, take the left-hand carb off, and the oil filter, and where it fits into the top of the gearbox. Might have to take the whole thing off. But I'll do that and then I'll come back. Right. Clutch actuating arm that lives, can't see because that's in the way. Hold on, bear with. Pushes against there. It's not going to focus. There's too many things in the way. Pushes against that. There's a little bearing behind there, but I'll get into all that once we start taking the gearbox apart. That's the return line for the oil cooler. I've just loosened that bolt there and just pivoted it up out the way. That is the return. No, it isn't, idiot. That's the comes off of that AN fitting there, comes out the gearbox, whizzy whiz round everything, back into the gearbox. Neutral light is disconnected. Bolts are out. The two in the other side are finger tight. They're almost out. So speedo drive, reverse lever stays on. Like I said, neutral switch off. That is everything. So, excuse me, pig. So what I shall do now is have a tote Put this down. I'll put it on the bench. I've got a little tripody thing, like spider-legged octopus, whatever they call it, and see if I'll film myself taking it out. As much as I don't like doing that sort of thing, but if it turns out that it's going to be ridiculous, then I'll how do I put it there? Yes, we'll see what happens. One bolt. Don't start bloody leaking on me, you fuck. Not going to plan, children. Hey. Doesn't normally give me this much grief. But today it is. Right, on closer dissection, the regulator rectifier wasn't there last time I took the gearbox out, and it's got a large plate there and a large plate there, that one, and that's stopping the gearbox just enough to come out, so I'm going to whip them off and we'll be back. Right, what are we looking at? Oh yeah, those two plates have now gone under there, so that should give me just enough room with this to get the box out. Bosh. Oily hands. Hey. It's out. Yeah. Those plates just stops it coming out. So it will come out with this on. All of that. Gear change lever, reverse lever, clutch push rod. It's got two O-rings on the end of it. In there is a little bearing. Looks a bit, the ball's running, that groove needs a clean up. Gearbox oil's coming out, a bit of it, it's alright. I'll clean all that up and get it on the bench. There you go, easy. That took just over an hour with fighting with the diff. The final drive on there, that took longest. And then if those plates hadn't have been on the end of the rectifier underneath there, it would have, like you saw, it just came straight out. So carburetor's off, sitting up there, all the filters out the way. So now I'm going to clean the swing arm up. Ooh, camera just went bright. Clean the swinging arm faces up, top and bottom. Clean up the diff where it meets, where it joins it. Phone's gone on the piss. Clean these. You see the corrosion. Allium steel really don't like each other. And allium stainless steel, forget it. But these have got PTFE around them and gearbox oil, so these won't seize in. So I'll put this back on so I can get the wheel back on, the wheel spindle back through, and I can move the bike about. Right, next job, gearbox apart. That's another video. Leave a comment, ask me any questions, leave a thumbs up if you like it, and if you don't like it, tell me why. Thank you very much. Goodbye.